everyone, and welcome. I'm Lisa Vassaturo, Director of Alumni Relations for the awesome College of Art and Design. We thank you for joining us this evening. Many in our RIT family have asked how they can help our students and the university in light of all that is happening in the world over this past year. We're incredibly grateful for those offers. There are actually two ways that you can help. First, our new graduates and current students are seeking opportunities both as co-ops and full-time positions. So if your organization is hiring, please reach out to our fabulous RIT Career Services office and allow them to assist you with sourcing candidates. In addition, there's an unprecedented need for financial aid and scholarships for both our in-person and virtual Tiger students. In honor of our special guest tonight, we'd like to highlight the Dean's Fund at the College of Art and Design. Note that support of this area will be counted in RIT's historic billion-dollar campaign, which has just breached the $785 million mark. If you're able, please make a gift at the link in the chat box. We're getting close, folks, and we thank you for that support. Now, just a few quick housekeeping points. All attendees have joined in mute mode. However, your questions can be entered at any point in the chat or question box throughout our discussion. We'll make every effort to address your comments and questions throughout the webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared with you in the coming weeks. If you have any technical questions, please type those in the chat box and we'll do our best to get you the appropriate answer. Tonight's event is sponsored by the Labazo Alumni House as a part of our Alumni Actor, Artist, and Author series, celebrating engagement with an artist, author, or actor who graduated from RIT and has found success in their passion for the fine, literary, or performing arts. With that, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Harlan Doolittle, proud member of the class of 2014 and a Los Angeles-based visual effects editor. Harlan is here to share their journey from RIT to overseeing visual effects. And with that, Harlan, the stage is yours.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me. How are you doing?
We're doing well. How are you doing?
Good, good. It's a sunny day in Los Angeles over here. You're getting a scenic view of what all my coworkers saw during several Zoom meetings during the pandemic, as we all worked remote on several different like TV shows and movies and stuff during the pandemic. So little insider POV of my room in Hollywood. But yeah, doing great. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. So I should share with folks that that you've overseen visual effects on shows such as American Horror Story, Westworld, and Netflix's acclaimed The Prom, and most recently, Halston. Help us in terms of, let's go back to your RIT days though first, shall we? We might say that your relationship to RIT started at a rather young age.
Oh yeah, right, very young actually. My dad, Richard Doolittle, actually is the vice dean at the College of Health Sciences and Technology, and he also has been teaching human gross anatomy for many years. So growing up, RIT was kind of like my intro to higher education and academia, because I remember, going to campus with him on like Bring Your Child to Work Day and like all of those sorts of events and stuff like that, and just tagging along to see the school and see, what like, a college looked like, what universities look like, all of that stuff. So yeah, I was introduced to RIT at a young age, which was really cool because I got to like understand like, oh, like college is like not just a place where you go for like higher learning, but it's something that can like, open up your imagination, your creativity, like curiosity, like all those sorts of things. And I remember going to the first Imagine RIT event, which has been going on for many years now at RIT. And I remember going around to like different exhibits and like seeing all kinds of cool stuff there. And I specifically remember at this first Imagine RIT going into one of the theaters to see some student work from the School of Film and Animation. And it was just so cool because I've always grown up with movies. Like I've always loved movies. When I was like 3 years old, I used to watch 101 Dalmatians with like my face as close to the screen and like rewind and play the chase scene at the end. You know, the one with Cruella while
Right.
she's like driving all crazy.
Did you
Like
have
that
a
was
favorite Dalmatian?
oh, that's so hard to choose. Oh,
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
I love all 101 of them.
Okay.
But yeah, I always loved movies and was just so curious about what made them tick from a really young age. So going to Imagine RIT and seeing the student work that was more, experimental and like more kind of like expressive with, especially with the editing and like animation, that just really like opened up my mind to be like, oh my God, there's this whole world of like learning the craft of filmmaking and exploring and sort of like pushing the boundaries of the form of filmmaking. Cause like I was always interested in like classic narrative movies, and like classic film structure, but that was kind of a key experience that opened me up to be like, oh my God, like there's the whole like thought of like the form and everything like that goes into it.
Sure.
And so that really I'd always kind of known I wanted to be a filmmaker, but like that was just like, oh my God, it's real, like it's there.
Right. So with that, did you always know you wanted to attend RIT?
Yeah, I kind of always knew I wanted to go to RIT. Like I had some opportunities to look at other film schools, like NYU or like other schools like that. But those are schools that tend to be more theory based, and you don't really get into like the nitty gritty like production side of things until later on in the degree. And I really liked that RIT had, especially in SOFA, like has this balance between production and theory. Like I took so many classes about theory when I was there. Like I took a John Ford class and I took an Italian film class and like exploring like all these different like cultural movements with filmmaking and storytelling, while at the same time they put a bullets in our hands day one and was like, okay, go make like an in-camera edit, like short film and
Right.
60 millimeter film. So I was really attracted when I was applying to schools. I was just really attracted to the production heavy side of things at RIT. And I think that really just fed into my work ethic that I use now in terms of collaborating with other people, like completing projects, time management, like all of those sorts of things. It's just a process that I would say I got very used to and was trained in at SOFA, like since the beginning.
Right. So it's unusual, correct, to be immersed in production in your first year and even in your first semester, right, in college?
Oh yeah, like I've talked to other people I work with, and like some of them had experiences that were similar where they had to do production their first year, but a lot of them kind of they don't have each individual student doing like that work, you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
sometimes they'll be like, okay, you have to like do a producer role for like all 4 years, but for us it was like, okay, you're gonna be hands-on with every step of the process before you can kind of segment off into what you want to specialize in.
Right. So what would that be what you would view as the most valuable thing you learned at RIT? That sense of being a member of a team and a production team so early, or was there something else you might point to?
That was definitely a huge part of it, and I actually still talk to and hang out with like a lot of my good friends that I met at RIT. Like there are several of my friends who I graduated the same year as in 2014 and who are all like out here working in the industry, and we're all like still collaborating with each other on top of like hanging out and still being friends and everything like that, which is really great. The other part of it on top of that and the work ethic thing would definitely be honing in on my creative point of view, because we had so many projects to do. Like at RIT in terms of like start to finish conceptualizing through shooting and editing. I felt that there was just like this safe space to like just create whatever and really experiment and kind of like, you know, play around in the sandbox to like find what my own sort of special sauce is. And
Sure.
I think that is so important in any art school, is like the space in the room to experiment, try things, like kind of go where your mind takes you, because that has really attributed to my work after film school, because that I carry that into like, you know, the notes I give at work and like the notes that I'll like think of like when I'm looking at a scene or whatever, you know, like that the creative intuition and like sharpening that is so important. And I'm so
Absolutely.
glad I got to do that.
That's fantastic. When you graduated, how did you make your connections to get to, so you went immediately to LA. Do I have that right?
Yeah, it was almost immediate. Like I worked in Rochester for about a year, like as doing like motion graphics and that sort of thing. Uh, and then I decided a year later that I was like, okay, I really want to like go for the big time, you know? So my connections in LA, I just really put myself out there and to meet people and respond to emails, respond to any job postings, stuff like that. And I also joined the Blue Collar Post Collective, which is an organization in New York City and LA that does like meetings and mixers and like sort of like social events for like anybody and everybody who's in post production, just to kind of like get everyone more friendly, like hang out, like all of that sort of stuff. So I really just took up the mantle with like all those opportunities to be like, not even thinking like, oh, like this might get me a job. Like
Mhm.
half of it was just thinking like, oh my God, there's so many people out here who are also like nerdy editors, you know what I mean? Who are like
Right,
really
right.
into post-production. So it was just really cool to meet people that way. And then also through work is how I continued to, like when I started working in the industry, that's I continued to kind of interface with other people in posts like around LA, was like going to those sorts of events.
Sure. Okay. So that whole network thing just looms incredibly large, whether it's through your alumni connections and then your professional connections, which include alumni, of course, but also expand that, which is, you know, in my experience, so important, especially in industries such as these, right?
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about you. You work with editors and producers, and you creatively shape their stories utilizing certain effects. Um, what is it that drew you to editing?
That's a great question. Because editing, I know a lot of people think that editing, it's like, oh, how do you sit there and do that? It's so boring, whatever. But like, I've always been interested in editing because to me, it's like the most important step of the filmmaking process, because until it's cut, like a film is just a 3 act play that happens in front of a camera. Like it's not like the actual act of making, weaving together the film happens in editing. Um, so like a part of it came from my love of dance. Like I was a dancer from when I was 6 years old all the way through high school and did it competitively as well. And I've always just had this thing about music and rhythm and unifying these elements to create something
Mm,
totally new. It's almost like a form of alchemy or something, to weave this dream together to bring it to life. And you know, like I took that love of music and rhythm and all of that, and at an early age, like around like 10 or something, I just started playing around with Windows Movie Maker,
okay.
which all those editing nerds know is like our first thing that we do, you know. So it was just fun to me. Like it was just fun to be creative like that and to create this vision into another world that was previously unimaginable out of my own imagination.
Sure.
And then I took a communications class in 10th grade at Pittsburgh Mendon High School. And I realized, oh my God, I can do this for a job. Like, wow, like I can actually do this for a living. So it was almost sort of like a hobby that became that I was very passionate about. And I understood like, oh wow, like this needs to be my career because I was put on this earth to do this. Like this is
Right.
definitely the thing that I want to do. So,
Amazing. So do you cut to music or dialogue or without sound, or how does sound influence your cutting then? Like I'm wondering, can you incorporate that love of music and dance and that into the work that you do, or how often are you able to do that?
oh yeah, absolutely. So outside of my work in television, I've also cut several music videos. And music videos have always been a huge passion of mine. I'm a big like Michelle Gondry, Chris Cunningham, like Spike Jonze sort of person.
Nice.
And I've always been so inspired by music videos as like their own form, because you can kind of go to places with music videos that you can't go with traditional like narrative storytelling. Um, so for example, like last year I cut this music video Kerosene for Yves Tumor, who is this really incredible like indie rock musician. And it was really cool to do a music video like that was like it was almost like half narrative, half non-narrative. So the music definitely played into the rhythm and cutting of that because you can really create a sense of like momentum, especially when you're cutting with music, like to really like tie the two together, like visuals and music, and have them intertwine to create this sort of like energy and climax.
Sure.
Uh,
Sure.
so I love cutting to music, especially with music videos. In television, it's a little different because like for example, the assistant editors I work with in television, how it usually works is the editor will cut together a scene, and then the assistant editor will go in and add a lot of sound effects and that sort of thing to really flush out the world. And it's really incredible, like the power of sound design in a film or TV show. Like Dave Silverski, who I went to Lake Placid 24-hour film festival with back in 2012. He's one of the sound professors at RIT. And what he
He
does,
might be on this. I'm not sure. So hi, Dave,
yeah,
if you are. Yeah.
blink twice if you're here, Dave.
Yeah.
Um, but just like I remember seeing him do sound design and mix sound and just being blown away at how much it adds to the experience. And it really completes like a scene and makes it feel so much more three-dimensional, way more physical and real. So there's something to be said about the power of sound design and somebody who's doing it as part of an editing team, because like when something's cut together, I'll watch it and be like, oh, that's really good. And then the assist will like sound it and I'm like, whoa.
Right. So with that, do you often watch television or movies and wonder what you would have done differently?
Constantly.
Yeah. Okay.
Constantly. I like some people, like when I was in film school, people would ask me all the time, like who like weren't also in film school, they would like ask film kids all the time, like, oh, can you like relax when you watch a show? Like, is it possible now that you know all the work that goes into it and the mistakes that could happen? Like, do you ever have a moment where you can relax and watch TV? And the pretentious answer is no, but the real answer is yeah. I mean, like I relax and watch TV all the time, but it is like I guess there are times where I see things that I would have done differently, but I'm mostly interested in like the distinct flavor of whatever show or movie I'm watching and how it kind of differs with what I'm doing. It's like, oh, they made that choice. Like that's interesting. I wonder, like, and my brain kind of like tries to figure out like like why and like how, what different effect it has as opposed to something that like, you know, my own instinct would follow.
Sure, sure. So tell us about working on some of your projects. The example I'll give is, let's talk about the prom. Did you understand how important the prom would be when it came to sharing the messages of diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
1000%. So I feel very, very fortunate to work on Prom, to have worked on Prom because it's a really special movie. Like I had all the music stuck in my head the whole time I was working on it. Like it's so good.
Right.
And um, it really felt like a full circle moment because I remember in high school, I watched a lot of TV when I was in high school, because I just love it. And I remember, like right after I came out, like, because I came out to my parents gay when I was like 16. And it was hard because it was like 2008 and like, it
Mhm.
just wasn't as easy of a time for like queer kids growing up,
Yep.
And
Yep.
I remember seeing like the first season of Glee air, and it had like Kurt in it, who was this, you know, shy gay kid who wasn't out to his parents or whatever. And there's this amazing scene like in the first season where he comes out to his dad and he's so scared too. And
Mhm.
seeing that and seeing it end well for him, like, and my parents were very accepting, like I never had an issue with my parents not accepting me, but just to see my story reflected in a medium that is so universally like accepted and respected, and like, especially after growing up and like it not being easy to be accepted or respected,
Sure.
especially mainstream media, it was just it was so meaningful to me. And later that year I got involved in my school's gay straight alliance, and like we did day of silence and like all of this stuff like for the community, and I just got way more involved because I was like, okay, like this feels so like purposeful, like I don't feel afraid anymore to do this.
Right.
And
Fantastic. Yep.
yeah, and Glee was helmed by Ryan Murphy, who I now work for. Um,
See?
so like going to work at Ryan Murphy was something that was really important to me to like get here, because I feel like the work that I'm doing in some way, shape, or form, if it helps some kid out there, like it helped me in that way, just to feel more part of grounded and part of the world and like you belong here,
Right.
like just makes it so worth it. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
working on the prom was like so special because it felt like, oh my God, I'm on the other side of the screen and I'm like helping this become a reality.
Right.
Um, so that was really, really meaningful to me.
How amazing is that, right? That's what a perspective, right, that you bring to that work too.
Yeah.
Um, so with that, how do you feel about chances of diversity and inclusion in Hollywood improving? We were asked a question as part of a registration from one of our guests who said, specifically, there's a woman starting out in their 50s. Um, so, how do you feel about that things changing in Hollywood in that respect?
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like it's changing constantly. Like even from when I started in the industry to now, it's changed so much. And it's kind of like interesting because post production used to be and editing used to be completely female dominated, like
Mhm.
entirely female dominated. And it was because back in the day, it was seen as something that was like, kind of like weaving or sewing, where it's like you're weaving these like strips of film together. And when computers and technology and all that like started to come in, like that's when it got like a little more male dominated. And in a sense, ironically, exclusionary towards women. But in my time like coming up through the industry and continuing to work in it, I've been seeing more and more like women and way more diversity with people who are like coming into the industry who just have raw talent and passion and the desire to
Mhm.
do it. And where I work now, I work with so many women and so many like diverse people, like, people of color, like, sexual gender minorities, like all kinds of people who, maybe like 10 years ago, like would not stand a chance to like work in the industry.
Right.
So I think more and more people are being recognized for their talent and their drive, which is really, and their work ethic, which are really the most important things to being in the
Okay.
industry and working here. Like, if you're really good at your job and you're fun to work with and you're passionate about it, then like we want you, like we want to work with you. And it's not
Sure.
just editors and producers, it's engineers, like managerial staff, like office managers, project managers, like this whole world of like professionals, like working professionals, like it's really great to see people being recognized more and more just for their drive and talent and who they are, as opposed to like,
Right.
oh, you don't fit this expectation of what we think you can do.
Sure.
So.
Sure. Sure. So we had actually a question about back to our sound and music conversation here. One of our guests asked, how often have you used a click track while editing a music video to help with the timing in cutting between scenes?
Oh, that's a good question. Usually I actually like I don't really use a click track, like an audible click track, but something similar that I use constantly and that's used all the time in editorial are just waveforms. So in the software we use, you can see like the waveforms of whatever audio you're putting in, like any sound effects or music. So usually when I'm cutting to music for like a music video or something, then I'll just zoom in on those waveforms and see where the beat's hitting, because it'll be bigger, like amplitude of like the waveforms. And then I use that to just like time out exactly like where the beat is. So.
Got it. Got it. Great. Um, do you have a favorite show you've worked on? Okay, I'm going to take the prom out of it. You can't say the prom.
Okay.
Do
Okay.
you have a favorite show you've worked on? And tell us about it and why. I mean, I would assume based on your previous response that the prom would rank up there. But you've had some really wonderful work on some other shows as well. So where do those kind of fall in your, what you are most proud of or most excited about?
Oh gosh. Um, I feel like my favorite show I've worked on, well, I'll split it up between my work in at Ryan Murphy and then my work in online and finishing. So Ryan Murphy, one of my favorite shows I worked on is Hollywood, which is this Netflix show, and it's all about what if like 1940s Hollywood had been more accepting of like gender and racial minorities, sexual minorities, like all of those people who were typically oppressed back then. And that was so much fun to do because like the cast was so good. Like Patti LuPone is like so good. And it was just great to see somebody like Janet Mock, who does a lot of like writing and directing work on Pose. Like she directed a couple episodes for Hollywood. So I remember this at one point, like watching down dailies for Hollywood and seeing Janet Mock direct Patti LuPone. I was like, oh my God, coolest moment of my life. Like, oh my God, so starstruck. So that was
Right.
really cool. And then at Encore, where I used to work in online and finishing before I worked at Ryan Murphy, I really loved working on Westworld season 2 because Ivy, the editor who I supported, I was working nights, like, supporting daytime online editors. And she was the lead editor for that. And she developed this entire workflow to online the show, to edit the show and finish it in Resolve. DaVinci Resolve, which is a color correction software. It used to be a color correction software, but now also incorporates editing. So she developed this entire new workflow to do the show in, that's now used in so many shows across the industry. So it was just really cool to be, at ground zero for like that
At the
sort of
cutting
thing.
edge. Yeah,
For
that's
a
cool.
huge show like that.
Yep.
Um, But I'll also throw in, I love working on season 1 of Pose, and I loved working on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend because that show is so
Okay.
funny.
Right, it is.
Yeah,
I'll agree with that, right?
yeah.
So one of our guests, Caroline Easton, likes your T-shirt. Nurse Ratchet, another great show you did.
Oh,
Congrats.
thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, this is a little piece of merchandise that my dad
Oh,
actually got me, and yeah, working on Ratchet was fun. I kind of like assisted them with like VFX and everything, and that show was really cool because we had a lot of advanced like murder and blood and like that kind of stuff, which is
right.
always like fun and juicy and also hilarious because like when I'm doing that kind of VFX, like my brain just switches into work mode and I'll be looking at somebody being like cut in half or whatever, like something for Horror Story where people's arms are getting chopped off. And I'm like, okay, we gotta like refine the roto around this edge and like if they feather this out and like maybe make the blood a little more red and like, you know.
Right, right. So here's another question we have. When you work on a show like American Horror Story, would you rather not know who done it when you edit, or is that doesn't even factor in?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, it's interesting because like I was just saying, like my brain kind of goes into a different mode when I'm working on VFX for something and I end up like not really paying attention to the story. So like for Horror Story, for example, like I'll be talking to an assistant editor on their episode and I'll like just be starting to work on it and they'll be like, so when this person dies, like we need their blood splatter to be bigger. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, and I'll just like go ahead and do it. And then
Okay.
like I'll step back and watch the episode, like kind of be like, oh, I know he dies, but then I'll watch it all come together and be like, oh, it's actually really good. So
Very good.
spoilers or
Very
no
good.
spoilers, I end up enjoying it either way.
Excellent. That's probably a bonus, right? Um, so one of our attendees has posed a question here in the chat. What steps do you take to seeking out new employment opportunities and growth? What website or training centers do you utilize to keep your skill set sharp?
Oh, that's a great question. Definitely Blue Collar Post Collective. They do a lot of like virtual events too, I believe. And they do like a lot of like in-person mixers and stuff, like if you're in LA or New York City, but I think they do virtual stuff. That's just great to connect with other post-production professionals and fellow nerdy editor people. And then a huge resource for me in finding work out here, like when I was first starting, is just Staff Me Up. Like Staff Me Up, like any of those like websites that post entertainment career jobs, pay for the pro account to get the email notifications because it's worth it. Because if you
Okay.
just respond first to everything, then like you'll be at the top, your resume will be at the top of the pile. So get the email alerts. Like it's so worth it. Um, but yeah, beyond that, it's just staying in touch with like I still stay in touch now with people who like, people like that I learned Avid from at Encore. Like we still
Okay,
stay in
sure.
touch and text all the time.
Right.
So another cool thing about this industry is that a lot of post-production people are really cool and friendly. So those people who, really like see your potential and like also become friends with you, like those people will definitely like stick with you. So once you are like in the biz, in terms of like keeping your skills sharp and seeking new opportunities, it really is just a matter of just hanging out with people.
Right.
It's like we
Right.
all we all work so many hours together that we all end up becoming friends, and it's almost like an added bonus to just be friends with people across the industry. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, let's take our favorite show question just a step further. Is there a particular scene that you're super proud of, and how did you cut it? Just
ooh.
one scene.
Well, in terms of a scene that I've cut, Um, there is this really awesome montage at the end of this music video, Inherit by Shun, spelled Ssion. And he's this really cool music video director and musician who has done videos for like Perfume Genius and Kylie Minogue and like all kinds of people like that. And there was this really crazy like freeform like Almodovar blended around and crazy mixed up with glitter on it like montage at the end that spliced together like HD footage and DV cam and like all kinds of different stuff. So
right.
that was really cool to do. In terms of a favorite scene that I've worked on, like as an assistant, that's a good question. Let me think. There's a scene at the end of American Horror Story 1984 where Leslie Grossman gets her arms and legs cut off and then thrown into a wood chipper. And then they like that was crazy to work on because it was a lot of VFX, but it was just also hilarious because she's got this like Ivana Trump like beehive hair and like 80s power suit on.
Right,
So
right. Oh,
the humor was just like insane. It was awesome.
wow, that's a good one. I do remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, here's one. Do you edit in your sleep?
Oh, that's a good question. You know what? I do. Let me ask you this. Do you mean like, do I dream of sitting at a computer and editing, or do I edit my dreams together subconsciously?
I think any or all of the above, right? Like, first of all, if you're working night, that creates one whole situation, right? Of how
Yeah.
you manage that. But then, second of all, do you take your dreams and edit those, right? I think that both are fair questions.
Yeah. I guess the answer is yes. Because I do feel like sometimes I dream in like a montage sort of format. Like I have like very vivid dreams occasionally that like seem to go on for a while, but like I do get inspiration from them in terms of like the way that I cut, just because it's like my subconscious, you know?
Sure, sure.
Um, there are times where I've dreamed that I'm at work and then I wake up and I'm like, oh, I gotta go to work, which like is less fun. But like, yeah, I would say I definitely like edit in my dreams in terms of like jumping around and whatever, and then I bring the dream into the editing, which is a fun.
Ah, I bet. I bet. Um, are we allowed to ask if you've ever sneaked your own cut on the side?
Oh, I have, like either just to practice or for my own amusement.
Okay.
We have such a obviously I can't release it for NDA reasons.
Right.
Uh,
Yep.
but that's one of the cool things about working like on shows is that you have all the material like right in front of you. So like obviously like you don't want it to go anywhere if you're just practicing, but you have all of the materials you need to like practice cutting on a TV show, or like practicing
Right.
a TV show. Like all of that raw material is right there. So it is really fun to just practice and kind of sharpen my own chops in my free time when I do have free time,
I
which
was
is
gonna say, is there such a thing as free time? Yeah, that could
yeah.
be a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
All right, a couple more questions here from our audience, and thank you so much for posing these questions. Do you watch other TV shows and think about VFX and the editing?
Oh yeah. Yeah, all the time. Like usually more so in the sense like sometimes people ask me like you saw the Starbucks cup, right? Like in Game of Thrones, and I'm just like, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Like, oh my God, I would never let that happen. Like,
right.
but yeah.
Oh,
But most of the time I do watch other shows for inspiration. Like there's a lot of other shows that I watch that I just enjoy watching in my free time. And then I end up just being struck with inspiration from watching that cut or watching their VFX and how they do things.
right.
Like I just watched WandaVision,
Yeah,
and I know I'm a little late to the party on WandaVision, but it's so good.
right.
And it was just really inspiring to see a show like that, like write this love letter to the history of television and they how they edited it, like, how they edited the 50s episode versus the Modern Family 2000s episode, and like the different homages to the craft was really cool. So like I
Right.
really look at shows in that way a lot of the time, where like I watch them because I enjoy them, and also because sometimes I'll just be swept up in it and be like, wow, that was really good, like how they do that, and then go back and look at the cut or the VFX and watch it again and be like, oh my God, that was so good.
Sure, sure. So you referenced inspiration, and this next comment slash question comes from someone you might know, your dad. Hi, Dr. Doolittle. And your dad says, I realize I'm a little biased, but Harlan is an amazing inspiration and ambassador, not only for RIT, but for all of those people, minorities, diverse populations striving to succeed. They are so talented. What show, movie would they most like to help produce slash edit?
Oh man.
So first of all, I'm going to agree with your dad.
Oh, thank you.
Number one, absolutely, all day long. And then second of all, he's posed a question about what you'd most like to help produce or edit.
What show would I like to produce or edit? Well, I'll bite my tongue a little bit because some Ryan Murphy peeps might be watching, and I don't want them to think I'm gonna jump ship anytime soon, because I'm not.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I mean, like, I love the show I'm working on now, American Crime Story. I think it's like a really incredible show and a really amazing story. I'm really drawn to shows like that that tell a strong story, but through like a distinct lens, you know, because a lot of Ryan Murphy shows, they have this like almost kind of queer, like gay subtextual sort of lens to them sometimes, where it's like, you know, so much of gay culture in the past is subtextual because of, you know, the Hays Code forbidding anything promoting like homosexuality or anything divergent from heterosexuality. Like, you know, you couldn't have gay people in like any shows or movies or whatever for decades. So so much gay culture up until recently has been like had to be like secret, subtextual, almost like a dog whistle, you know. So I really appreciate when like our higher ups kind of have a sense of that and are able to like weave that into the shows we do now. Because it feels like not only that it's a part of a canon, but also because it's like designed to be for everyone, but also like a wink and a nudge to like queer people. But I also I really loved Euphoria when that came out. So working on that would be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I also love RuPaul's Drag Race. So I actually know a couple people who've cut on that show, and they said it's like so much fun. So I'm like, oh, like that would be cool.
Right. Right.
For any, if they're watching,
like. Is there anything that you've learned about being an assistant editor that they didn't teach you in school, and arguably because they couldn't teach it? Right? You kind of had to figure it out as you forged your path.
That's a great question. If I went the technical route with that answer, it would just be like managing the infrastructure that only really is so region locked. It only is in the industry, like localized in LA or New York. But if I went with the fun answer, it would be just to have fun at work. Like, you know, like, I mean, I feel like I learned some of that at RIT just by collaborating with friends, but so much of what we do is so interactive and so collaborative and interpersonal that it really becomes important when we're at work, you know, all the time, to just have fun, like have a good time, you know, like bring your best self into it. And like, you know, everybody's there to like make this thing that's like really entertaining and like to stimulate our culture and all of that, you know. So like that's one thing that I you know, like try to remember to bring into my job is like, you know, like have fun with it, like get all your work done, obviously like don't slack off, but like, you know, like just to bring the attitude of joy and creativity and to stay inspired, you know, like I have like at home I'm obsessed with like collecting records, so like I have like a pretty decent record collection.
Do you have a favorite?
Oh, goodness. Well, I did just get Joanna Newsom's triple album "Have One on Me" from 2010, which is this really great like folk singer-songwriter harp album. That's really good.
Okay. Wow.
But yeah,
so can we find you at Record Archive when you're home?
Oh, absolutely, all the time.
Okay.
Like the next time I'm in Rochester, I'm going.
Okay.
But that is something that I feel like I kind of learned in film school, but that was reinforced by being here, is to stay curious, stay inspired, like this is the reason why we're doing this, is because we enjoy it, so
Sure.
I love music, I love video games, I love all of that stuff, so like I'm always just immersed in like the arts and like seeing what everybody's doing, and I think that's the fun part, is like you get to bring all of that inspiration into work.
Yep, absolutely. So Caroline Easton chimed in as well a bit ago and said, Caroline here, me too, agree, you are amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I'll share that. Yeah. If there's such a thing as a typical day, and maybe there's not, right? But if there's such a thing as a typical day, what might it look like for an assistant editor?
For assistant editors, it's usually, I try to get to the office around like 10 o'clock in the morning. And for what I do with VFX, we usually with the show will get into a rhythm once we start working on VFX for an episode. We'll send them out and turn them over to vendors, like visual effects vendors and artists, because they do the super final, really fancy work on the really high res, like final images.
Sure.
And once they do, then they crunch them back down and send them to us in editorial for us to review and to look at. So typically I'll get into the office and cut in whatever shots we received the night before and the morning of, and then work with producers to review them, like see, what notes we sent for the last version, if they hit those notes, anything that's changed in the edit with the editor and assistant editor, if like there's new stuff that needs to be taken care of, and just managing the timeline, which if anyone's worked with Premiere or Avid, you kind of know like what the layout with the tracks and everything is. And then we have a little lunch and do a little coffee break, and then a little more of the same afterwards.
Okay.
But another fun part of VFX AEing is doing temps. So we have our vendors do the final effects that get sent to our online and finishing house to get ready for air, because it's the highest quality. But sometimes when an editor is cutting a scene, they'll be like, oh, I love this actor on this side of the screen's performance, but just need to keep this person still, or like, oh, I need to like hide this camera reflection, and I'll just do it for them really quick, like in the Avid, and send them right back to them, so that when Ryan watches it, or like other people who are higher up watch it, then the cut like flows really smoothly and there aren't any kind of visual bumps like that. So
sure. So is there interaction with the directors of any of these shows? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like usually for assistant editors, they'll work with the editors and the director of the episode, because typically on a TV show, the director will come in and do their notes after the show's cut together. Like the editor and assistant will cut together the entire episode or whatever is shot for it so far, and then the director will come in and be like, oh, could we use this performance, could we switch that around, like give their kind of notes on it, like on picture and sound. And then after that is when Alexis Martin Woodall, who's the president of Ryan Murphy Television, like she does like her pass at it, and then Ryan watches it last and gives his notes. So we're always like tweaking to kind of help shape the show to fit everyone's creativity in, which is really fun to kind of like, that's kind of the most fun. It's like if I get a note from Alexis or somebody, and she's like, she'll be like, this needs to feel more dangerous, or this needs to feel more like a threat, or I want this to feel more like warm, then like we're kind of given those notes like that direction, and then we're free to like kind of interpret it and send it back and with our own sort of take on it, which is a lot of fun.
Okay.
So let me take that a little step further, right? So are there sort of rules for editing certain types of scenes, like comedy versus dialogue versus action, that you tend to follow? Not so much a rule, I guess, but more like a process. Or are there rules that you like to sort of break and push the edge on?
Oh, well, I'm all about breaking the rules, first of all. But yeah, there are different ways that you can attack a scene, and you can kind of like start on it, and the sort of POV that you bring into it. Generally, if you're cutting like horror, for example, instead of comedy, like obviously you want to structure it around like, making a certain scene scary, or like making a jump scare work. You have to like manipulate the sound in order for a jump scare to really work. There's a very specific way that you need to like design the sound in order for it to be scary and to make people jump. So obviously like that's much different than cutting something like comedy, where you have to have like comedic timing and kind of like understand when to land the beat or when to land the punchline. But it really all just comes down to your own instinct and timing. And that is so important. Like you can't really teach someone timing. Like it has to be something that's like innate. And like what I was talking about before, like I owe a lot of that to growing up with dance. Like that's kind of like my first dive into like how timing works, and like how to harness that instinct and express it. So I've known editors who cut on comedy for one show and then go straight to horror and then go straight to a drama, So it really is all about harnessing your own take on it, and then being able to apply that in a way that works and also is going to be something that is the tone of the show, which is cool.
All right. Do assistant editors use the force? I'd love to know how often instincts are followed more than the script.
Oh yes, constantly. I mean, usually like that's kind of what I was just talking about, like your own instinct.
Yeah.
Like the force, that's a good word for it, because it feels that way, like you're summoning your own energy to go into it.
Yeah.
Typically with if you're working on a TV show, you kind of have to follow the script, but the fun part is following the script and like putting your own kind of like flavor into it, like your own take on how to do something that's scary, or your own take on how to do something that is sad, or something that's happy or funny, like the harnessing the force, or special sauce, as I call it sometimes.
That's a good one too. I like that.
Yeah, that's honing in on that is like a lot of fun, and I use it every day. Like I use the force every single day, I would say. So that's a key element.
Nice. I guess I would say I want to open it up to any last questions from our guests or the audience. We're getting sadly close to the end of our time together. So if anyone has any, I know, we'll have to do it again.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So any last questions, let us know, type them in the chat or the Q&A and we'll get them up there. Harlan, do you have any last sort of pearls of wisdom to share, or shout outs or insights as we wrap this up here? Anything we didn't cover that you were hoping we would? We kind of got through we did a good job. I'm proud of us. So I didn't know if we'd get through all our questions, but.
Yeah, totally. I would just say work smarter, not harder. If you're an editor, like don't overcomplicate things, like it's sometimes people get caught up in the tools, and which is the fanciest one, but I typically am an Occam's razor person, like whatever is the most simplest path that gets you to the same place is typically the best. So that's always something, and that's a creative skill too. It's like, understanding what is the best way to, like attack a task that isn't gonna spend too much time or money.
Yep.
And yeah, follow your gut. Like that's your gut, the force, all of that, it's real, and it will never steer you wrong.
Right, absolutely. So Dave Silverski is on. Hi, Dave Silverski. And he
Oh, hi,
writes, Harlan,
Dave.
keep having fun. Keep having fun. Okay, two
All
more
right.
questions, and then I think we'll wrap up here. So one is from Stacy Beck. Hi, Stacy. I know Stacy's an alumna too from SOFA, if I have that right. Stacy's asking, what type of camera are you using during this Zoom session? It shows great video quality.
Oh, thank you. It is like a Logitech like 1080 camera. It's like the kind of flat skinny one. I would show you, but I don't know if I can.
But
But you
that
can.
might well, right? Okay. And
Yeah.
then here's another one from an attendee. When was the moment when you got it in the industry? When did you figure out how the business works and how to progress? In Rochester, in LA, either or?
That's a great question.
I like that question. Yeah.
Yeah, when I first started working in the industry, I started as a PA, like for a post facility, which is, running, getting people's lunches, like making sure the office is running good, like making sure everyone kind of has what they need. And I really wanted to be an assistant editor, so I would go into the assist bay with the other assistant editors who were there, and like shadow them and like learn from them. It was really cool because like that group of people, like Joe Delgado and Mezgin Gevermeskel, like they were really kind and sharing their knowledge about Avid with me. But first, like going into it and hearing them talk with producers, like using terms like EDL and AMA link and like, like all of that stuff, it's almost like a foreign language, like the way that people communicate and post, because there's so many acronyms and there's so much language that's centered around like already knowing how it works. So it took a few months just for me to learn what everything means and how to communicate. But I think once I learned that, and once I got the hang of that, and the hang of once I moved up to being an assistant editor, just getting the hang of using Avid every day, it's almost like a muscle memory thing where once you learn how to ride a bike, when you go and do it, it's nowhere near as intimidating as when you first started. So that's how I feel with Avid. Like the editing software we use, it's used across the industry, it really is just all about practice and doing it over and over and over again. And then once you get the hang of that, then you are just like, oh, I can apply this to anything, So I would say that, yeah, that experience.
Sure. So sadly, my friend, we have reached our 1 hour mark here. So thank you so much for sharing your passion and expertise with us. We're so grateful that you joined us. I want to also thank our interpreters, Meredith and Curtis, and our captioner, Cindy, and our tech support student, Connor. Thank you for keeping me sane on this end. Please remember, all audience members will receive an email from us with a link to tonight's webinar recording. These webinars are also available on the Alumni Association YouTube site, and I believe Connor will put that into the chat for you. There you go. So you can feel free to watch this one and catch up on past events as well. There's a full listing of upcoming virtual events also can be found on the alumni page. We have several each month, and we'd like you to join us for as many as you possibly can. The next one is slated for July 8th and takes sort of a pretty big turn from what we just talked about here tonight. We'll be going on July 8th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, featuring Dr. Grover Schwarzlander, RIT professor in the College of Science. Dr. Schwarzlander's talk will describe astrophysical space sail experiments being conducted only at RIT, making Rochester an emerging national testing center. In particular, he will pose the use of solar sails to position a constellation of satellites around the sun, possibility providing the first images of the north and south poles of the sun. That appears to be pretty fascinating.
Wow.
Again, I know, I'm like, what? We do really cool things here, right? Again, Harlan, thank you so much. Thank you for our guests who joined us. Do let us know what you thought of this webinar. You can email me directly, Lisa Vassatoro, and my email is there in the chat as well. Thank you, Connor. Again, thank you for joining us. Please exit the webinar by simply closing your browser. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe, stay positive, and stay your course. Thank you.
Thank you.
You got a wonderful webinar. Learned a lot. Lots of comments. I don't know if you can see them.